Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94, back with another reaction video. Today we're going to react to why we don't need another Boondocks reboot. It's tough to say if we do or do not need it. The only thing is, will it ever come out? That's the real question. Will it ever come out is the real question. But to say that we don't need one, that's kind of a reach. But anyways, though, we're going to get right into this video without further ado. Let's get right into it. Make sure we speed this up. Any video that's about to be like 20 minutes long, we about to pump it up. speed it up.
The creator and executive producer of Boondocks, Aaron McGruder, joins us from Los Angeles. Mr. McGruder, you have Martin Luther King saying the N-word. It's going to be highly offensive to many people. Why?
Well, actually, we had him say nigga. We don't use the N-word on my show.
There's never been a more unique medium that provides commentary on black issues than the sitcom. For generations now, black sitcoms have been
Alright, this might be a little too fast. My bad.
instrumental in offering insightful critique on black issues in America by using plot lines and humor. By following a basic 3-act structure, these shows are able to create heartfelt stories that not only address societal and cultural issues, but also provide a platform for nuanced discussion on topics such as racism, discrimination, and identity. While these sitcoms over the years have depicted a variety of different backgrounds and walks of life, many of them depict a very specific view of black American life, a traditional, often nuclear family-oriented lifestyle. Now, these depictions were by no means meant to display the quote-unquote perfect or ideal black American experience, but rather a version that the creators felt was desirable. They wanted to paint a world where, despite having to face the many systemic challenges that come with being black, characters were still emboldened by their sense of community and able to still find ways to happily thrive in them, or at least try. The 3-act structures of these shows allowed them to perfectly present a societal issue as conflict and have it be resolved by the end of the episode. The end product is a format of storytelling capable of providing useful commentary to millions of people. Now, that's not to say sitcoms were infallible. While sitcoms may have been instrumental in breaking down barriers on screen and bringing many different perspectives of black American life into the equation, it also could be argued that they simultaneously upheld the status quo. These sitcoms, despite their good intentions, still often found their messages diluted and distorted through the lens of respectability politics. And I mean deep with the respectability politics. Whether it be addressing sensitive issues such as crime, drug addiction, or even systemic racism, there's always an underlying rhetoric that upholds this very conservative bootstrap mentality of how to address issues, viewing them as familial issues rather than systemic. By doing so, they uphold the status quo. It would be pretty hard, if not impossible, for a black sitcom to do anything that does the opposite. In an industry such as entertainment that already doesn't want to grant black people access, you can see why many black shows and sitcoms don't attempt to get too transgressive with their messages. Attempting to portray anything that goes against the perpetuated norm for how black Americans are seen through the media would be dangerous, and it's a quick way to get blacklisted in Hollywood. But there was one black sitcom that not only wasn't afraid to push back, but pushed its own narrative in the process.
I am the stone at the building.
Boondocks is an American animated sitcom created by writer Aaron McGruder, loosely based on McGruder's comic strip of the same name. Now, the series follows the Freeman family, Huey, Riley, and their granddad Robert, as they navigate their predominantly white suburb of Woodcrest. Debuting in 2005, the show lasted a total of 4 seasons and 55 episodes, managing to tackle a variety of political topics affecting the black community. Topics such as class struggle, stereotypes perpetuated inside and outside black culture, race relations, and black people's tumultuous and complicated relationship with the American media and entertainment industry. As you can imagine, the show got pushback. A lot of pushback. Pissed off white people to Al Sharpton to the heads of BETs themselves. Everyone caught strays from their critiques of black culture. No one, no matter how important, influential, or powerful, was safe from criticism, which was what made the show so effective. When examining movies and television, we often ask ourselves, what makes a good film or show? Now, the criteria is always subjective, but doing my research, it seems that everyone has some common ground. In my opinion, a good movie or show has to invoke a feeling in you. That feeling doesn't have to be good or bad, it can be happy or sad, but it has to spark an internal dialogue within you. That internal dialogue grants us both questions and answers every time we view and consume that media. When examining the Boondocks and its cultural impact, it's clear that the Boondocks has left its mark. It's impossible for anyone on the internet to not have seen a Boondocks, but a good show is more than just memes retelling the same jokes. Why have these jokes stuck with us? Why are the messages and critiques of an almost 20-year-old show still being asked today? It's because the show served its purpose. When examining why reboots happen, it's usually for a specific reason, and that's to bring in new fans and retell a familiar story for a newer audience. We usually see reboots try to modernize or update themes of projects in order to fit today's current themes and values, but that raises a question. What themes within the Boondocks need to be modernized? The Boondocks was a critique of how American culture intersects with Black identity, as well as the many problems it creates and how we as a people oftentimes have to navigate. It constantly asks us to question our role in the never-ending conundrum of a racist society. Because of this, because of how so many of those same questions and critiques still apply to aspects of Black American culture today, a reboot is not necessary. There's no set criteria for what makes a good or bad reboot. Furthermore, there's no singular way to really analyze whether or not a piece of media hit the mark that it's intended to. So in order to argue that the Boondocks doesn't really need a reboot, we're going to focus on two main areas: the show's versatility and applicability, as well as how the show addresses its own growth. Both of those areas will focus on how effective that message was communicated to its audience and how the creation of a reboot would hinder or not add anything constructive to those things. I also want to take the time and point out that this show is by no means flawless. There are a variety of different elements in the show. Some, while not outright egregious, definitely has soured as time went on in terms of how they were presented. The two biggest examples of this are the unintentional anti-Blackness when addressing impoverished communities and the blatant homophobia of episode. As great as they may have been for trying to push messages across, they definitely were kind of off color even for the day. Don't even get me started on the Booty Warrior episode. I just cannot rewatch this episode for the life of me. I understand.
I'm gonna get that butt, Tom. Pause.
Hey, yo!
Y'all know, I was trying to quote the show. Don't play with me. I know not to play with me. We done already been through this once this week. I don't need to go through it again. But no, I feel what he's saying though so far about, this show served its purpose. And, I'm kind of seeing it though. Like, do we really need it? Because the show has, as time has progressed, this show has become more of a profit. It's become more of a... It's predicted the future multiple times. Multiple episodes can predict the future. Popeye's got a new chicken sandwich. The next thing, a couple of months later, a fucking worldwide pandemic happens. Like, yo, you don't just, the fact that Boondocks predicted this, then you got the gay shit going on in the rap game now. All the gay shit going on. Niggas wear purses, niggas wear skirts. Oh my god. Then you got niggas selling out to Obama and falling off. Not valuing what this nigga's real message is. You know what I'm saying? They predicted that. That took some time though for everybody to see that we really supporting somebody that's not really supporting us. Maybe we should take a step back and really start looking at the policies and what this person is going to do for us. Boondocks predicted that. Boondocks has brought so much shit to life, bro. It took some time to get there, but it got there. So yeah.
And it tries to tackle sexual assault in prison, but it kind of misses the landing, like, pretty hard. And let's not even forget the fact that the show's writers simply cannot write black women. You thought Donald Glover was something else, but it doesn't have to be flawless. In fact, I'd argue that trying to make a show like this perfect would defeat the whole purpose. I believe that in order to properly offer a critique of black culture, you need to acknowledge your own biases, prejudice, and forms of anti-blackness. Because, let's be honest, we all have anti-blackness in us. The Boondocks, like any other form of television, is still trying to tell us a message at the end of the day. This opinion simply seeks to argue that the way it was conveyed is timeless and not needing of a reboot. So, let's dig in. A tough reality about any sitcom, be it black or white, is that eventually it will become dated. Regardless of whenever it was released or how transgressive it may have been at the time, some parts of it, no matter how big or small, are going to be less impactful as a result of the ever-changing social climate. But what keeps people talking about the Boondocks? How was the show still able to stay relevant as time went on? Well, one thing that allowed the Boondocks to be so effective was its versatility. In a 2005 behind-the-scenes documentary, Magruder talks about the process of translating the printed comic strip format of the Boondocks over into television. What works in the strip doesn't necessarily work in the show, vice versa. A lot of stuff we do in the show, we can't really even put in the strip. In the strip, we can talk about real things that are happening today, tomorrow, or even next week. And I think there's something important to that. In the show, comedically, we virtually have no barriers. We're allowed to go wherever our imaginations take us. And that's very liberating creatively. Magruder has always talked about humor and his wife being a vessel. It's what's used to deliver the message rather than the substance of the work itself. It's the sweetener, not the food itself. Take a frosting off a cake and it's still a cake. The same logic can be applied to the Boondocks. By creating strong, argumentative critiques of black culture that can stand up on their own without the use of humor, you're able to craft wide-ranging, effective stories. It's why some of the most effective episodes have centered around the critique itself. The humor comes from the absurdity of the situation and the episode itself. For example, let's look at Season 1, Episode 2, The Trial of Robert Kelly. The episode covers the infamous 2005 trial of R&B singer R. Kelly, in which he was accused and later convicted years later of indecent sexual acts and child pornography.
I forgot
How
about
the media
R. Kelly.
reacted to the entire affair and circus to begin with. The Boondocks uses this as an opportunity to offer a scathing critique of celebrity culture and how we as consumers are willing to engage in hypocrisy and turn a blind eye to the mountains of evidence against them, just because of their love for their artist's work. This speaks to the show's versatility. One, because there were far too many of you back then defending him, but also because of today. Swap out R. Kelly and the episode still works. No, I'm serious. Swap out that nigga Robert and the episode still works. From Bill Cosby to Diddy, we always see the ridiculous monkey-ass backwards claims
Bro, ain't nobody
to take down successful black men.
Sir, I'm gonna tell you right now, ain't nobody protecting P. Diddy. Ain't nobody fighting for P. Diddy. Ain't nobody fighting for... Ain't nobody trying to protect P. Diddy. I don't care what this tweet says. Ain't nobody trying to protect P. Diddy. It might be a couple of weirdos out there, but I think a majority of us black men know that P. Diddy been a weirdo for quite some time now.
And how it's always used as a rallying cry whenever things like this happen and it's time to hold motherfuckers accountable. All of the nonsensical excuses made by the people in the show are still being made by you niggas today. Hell, when Tory Lanez got rightfully convicted and sentenced, we saw thousands of clowns defending this pint-sized nigga with wild conspiracy theories, with the FBI and Jay-Z conspiring and plotting.
Hey man, I stayed away from this Tory Lanez Megan Thee Stallion situation, man. If he shot, hey man, I said let the court handle this, and it turns out that nigga shot her in the feet, shot her in her feet. Remember, Megan didn't say she shot he shot her in her feet. She shot her in her feet. So when she first said that shit, I was like, "Oh, this a dumb bitch." I said, "Megan Thee Stallion a dumb bitch. Pretty little bad motherfucker, but this a dumb bitch." Said shot her in both her feet. Oh man, but fuck that nigga Tory Lanez. That nigga deserved what he got.
To take him down.
The hell is wrong with you people? Every famous nigga that gets arrested is not Nelson Mandela? Yes, the government conspires to put a lot of innocent black men in jail on fallacious charges. But Tory Lanez, not one of those men.
And that's when you miss the whole point of the Boondocks' humor. It's not just making fun of the absurd situation. It's making fun of you niggas. It highlights the issues and areas of our community that need to be addressed and improved on. And in the
everybody know that Boondocks makes fun of the black community. It's possibly that Boondocks is the only show where we could actually laugh at ourselves and be like, yeah, boy, we be tripping sometimes, boy. We definitely need to get it together. But hey, this shit was funny as fuck though, my nigga. It's good to laugh at yourself sometimes.
Process manages to provide humor by making fun of the situation. You can find this within most of the episodes. In fact, the best ones of the series have managed to do this. When you don't rely solely on humor to capture your audience and instead focus on a much more substantial critique, you're able to create a much more versatile show. So versatile that its messages still hold up almost 20 years later. But that versatility is demonstrated in more ways than just the episode premises, but the characters themselves. When you examine the characters of the show, you notice how, similar to other sitcoms, they maintain the same traits and tropes that they had when the series began. They'll usually progress as the series goes on, becoming more mature or warm towards other characters. But the Boondocks is different. While the characters do maintain their own unique personalities and traits, they're also for the most part static, which helps the versatility of the show. Using static characters allows for the writers to use them as walking personifications of certain behaviors, thoughts, and tropes within the black community. For example, Huey is pretty straightforward. He represents the black radical tradition as well as the revolutionary spirit found within so many of our movements. Despite this, he still has a tendency to be headfast and rigid in his beliefs. Conversely, Riley represents how blackness is represented by the media. Riley, despite his pretty comfortable and privileged home life, constantly desires to have a life that isn't his. He desires an idea of blackness that he sees through the distorted lens of the media. We then have Robert. Robert represents the older generations of black folk who have experienced racism in a different magnitude than, say, some of the younger generation, and still holds on to traditional values. Despite this, he still shares many of the same same flaws as Huey, such as his extreme stubbornness, albeit to a much higher degree. I'd argue this is more representative of the older generation in general, who oftentimes have seen much more difficulty letting go of some of the traditional values and mindsets that they tended to grow up with, and embracing a new or different perspective. And this applies to just about every character in the show, from sheltered black perspectives to predatory forces that prey upon the black community to straight up self-hating coons. There's a character for just about every archetype, and this is a good thing. By having characters representing entire archetypes, you can center your arguments within that episode around how the characters perceive the world. It's why so many episodes with Huey revolve around him attempting to stop some harmful force entering his community, or Riley-centered episodes revolving around him pursuing a lifestyle that isn't his own, only for him to get caught up and come to a realization that it's not what he really wants. And this speaks to the versatility of the show because a wide range of stories are able to be told just off of the characters alone. When you have over-the-top characters, each who have their own argument regarding blackness, you're able to create storylines that challenge those arguments. If you were to ask a casual fan of the Boondocks, someone who's just simply seen the show, what their favorite episode was, they might not be able to tell you. But if you were to ask this person who their favorite character is, you'd have a much better answer. This is because the characters themselves embody what the show's message is, a critique on Black American culture and how it intersects with other aspects of American life. Whether it be through the storylines or the characters themselves, both are used as arguments, which adds to the show's versatility. And because those arguments are so abstract and don't simply have an answer, we end up still questioning those arguments today, 20 years later. And because of this, a reboot is not necessary. But what happens when that argument has already been made? What happens when you already crossed the finish line, but you decide to keep your foot on the gas anyway? Is a reboot absolutely necessary if you have nothing new to add? Earlier, we talked about media becoming dated and how there's many ways a show can work against this and continue to be relevant. After all, you keep a car well maintained, it's gonna keep running, right? But what happens when that engine fails? Better yet, what happens if you put water in the gas tank? Yeah, the car's gonna run for a little bit, but eventually it's gonna shut off. Animated sitcoms in particular face this problem of going past their shelf life, running on water instead of anything substantial. From Rick and Morty to every single one of Seth MacFarlane's projects, with The Simpsons being the most popular and infamous example of this, the most common criticism of these shows is that they have become unfunny or stale. And I would agree, but why? Why have these shows lost their luster? What caused them to become so bland and less funny? Well, that's because they've lost their message and instead became parodies of themselves. There's a wonderful video that goes into great detail about how The Simpsons went off the rails, but in general, after a show like this goes on for so long, it begins to lose meaning of what it really is. The characters lose their personalities and the message of the show becomes lost. What starts off as satire, criticizing American culture, becomes a parody of itself, creating ridiculous, out-of-character scenarios that don't even match the characters themselves. But there's no way the Boondocks could do this, right? Season 4 is generally considered to be the worst out of the series. This season is the only to not have any involvement from series creator Aaron Magruder, who left after season 3, nor executive producer Carl Jones. And you can kind of tell, the characters become over-the-top characters of themselves. The plots don't make any sense anymore, and the jokes and humor kind of fall flat. It's like the writers started using online Boondocks episode premise generators. You can tell that the show was not going in the original direction anymore, and that's because it already kind of did that. While the show didn't tackle every wedge and issue within Black American media, it did hit a wide range of topics that all intersect into each other, and managed to do so effectively for what it had access to. Every episode went back to the idea of presenting an argument about Black American culture. Season 4 didn't really do that. By not maintaining that original message or purpose, the writers weren't able to craft episodes around the arguments they were trying to make. That's because there no longer was an argument to make. When you just keep making a show because it's good, or without asking yourself, why am I making this, or what's making it good, you lose sight of why you began in the first place. It not only becomes a parody of itself, but a hollow husk. While many people try to blame the departure of the original writing staff and crew for why the final season had such poor quality, I don't really think they're entirely to blame. While it's definitely a contributing factor, they weren't the only ones who understood the point of the show. Hell, in fact, a lot of people, including audience members, understood what the point of the show was. And that goes back to the original big question. What is this show trying to accomplish? The Boondocks already achieved its goal of providing satire regarding Black issues in America, and it managed to do so in just 3 seasons. Even with the original staff, it's only a matter of time before you begin to run out of ways to challenge that original creative argument. There's plenty of shows out there now that offer beautiful critiques and perspectives of Black culture, and manage to do so without overstaying their welcome. Sometimes you don't need 5 to 10 seasons. Sometimes you don't even need a reboot. Instead of trying to recreate what's already worked, why not create something new? There's a plethora of artistically driven Black creators out there right now waiting to create something new and waiting to say something about our media landscape and how it intersects with our cultural identity. Go support them. But here we are, waiting for another reboot. I want to leave you with one final question. Hell, you can even comment this if you want, but I want to leave you with one final question. Even if the Boondocks reboot didn't get canceled, what would you even want out of it?
I've seen what's around the corner. I've seen what's over the...
Probably just the entertainment, the nostalgia. And I mean, if Aaron Magruder's behind it, of course I'm going to go for it. If they say Aaron Magruder's not behind it, obviously we're not going to watch it because we've seen the product without its main guy. So I see where you're coming from. And I do understand. I kind of do agree with it. Boondocks has served its purpose, but I mean, has it tackled everything that's wrong with the black community? There's still some problems out there that may need to be addressed. You know, I would love for some more topics to hit, but that's if we ever do get it. But yeah, man, that's just gonna be it for this one. Do y'all think that Boondocks needs a reboot, or do you just think that we should just stop hoping on it and just be happy with what we got out of those first 3 seasons? Because we don't talk about the 4th one. But yeah, man, that's just gonna about do it for this one. I'll see y'all in the next video. Till then, peace out.